joining me this morning for our What's New evidence updates for school leaders and colleagues in schools. It will last half an hour maximum and we'll be finished by 8:30. So agenda this morning then, we're going to be looking at research findings. So some new research that has come out and some good places to find research. We're also going to look at what's new for the EEF. And in that it'll be the new science primary guidance report that came out, and look at some resources that have been out this year, and also some research School CPD opportunities and research School and other opportunities available to you to follow on with. Okay, so obviously we're Staffordshire Research School, just an introduction. So Nathan Morland is the strategic link and the Teaching School Hub director. I'm the Research School Director, and then Stacey Jordan is our operational lead, and she's our new operational lead, and it's lovely that she joined our team for extra capacity. We've also got a range of amazing ELEs, including Guy that's here. I've only put a photo of a few of them, but we have a wealth of experience with our ELEs. They're very, very specialist and got lots and lots of wealth of expertise, and they work with us delivering programmes and training and delivering support for schools. We have a YouTube channel with a number of videos on that are supportive. We also have a podcast that we put podcasts on, and in the January recording some with some new authors about the research they've used for their books. And we also have a number of blogs on there. There's just 3 current ones that we've put on recently. One was about unlocking the potential of primary science, some insights from Catherine Peck from her school, and how she manages to put in those guidance recommendations into her school. We've also got about the oracy gap, and also about pedagogy versus andragogy in post-16 classrooms. So a wealth of sort of exemplification for how you can put the research into play. So here's some current research findings that I'm just going to share with you. One of them is the PISA report. So the PISA looks at internationally how 15-year-olds do in many, many different countries. And it looks at the state of learning and the equity in education. And that was, that was released last week. And there's no surprises, I don't think, in the evidence that came out in terms of the research, but the pandemic has hit hard internationally, and actually the results have gone down across the board in all countries due to the effects of the pandemic. England's teens saw test scores drop as a result of that, but ultimately they improved in international comparisons, and we actually came 11th in maths. So that rose up. So we rose our ranking in maths. And maths attainment was really positive for English teens, and we did particularly well in the reasoning questions. And so really it's thinking about, well, what is it that we're doing in England that's helping with that? And I think with the maths hubs that are working with schools and with our curriculums now based on that mastery approach and that reasoning and speaking about maths and putting a bigger emphasis on reasoning, then I think that has supported our teams to do well with that. The sad news that was very, disappointing was that too many children in England and the UK don't know where their next meal is coming from. And I think they found 1 in 10 children didn't know when they were next going to eat. So again, it's that result of the sort of cost of living crisis. Again, is hitting hard in terms of the impacts, and also that massively impacts on the well-being of the pupils as well. And so it's looking at schools, how also we can support that well-being of our pupils, and also teacher shortages. There was 45% of head teachers said that the teacher shortages were having a big impact on the education they were able to provide in their classroom. And I know that the quota that they wanted to recruit into secondary education training, they only managed to recruit 50% of that target. So there is a real crisis, and it needs and obviously it's not in our control as schools. It needs a bigger sort of government look at the strategy for that. But obviously within schools we can look at how we are supporting the well-being of our colleagues and the workload and the automate, how we are grading them or looking at them and monitoring them, and what we can do to support staff in schools. Obviously, immigration is a big thing at the moment in the press for headline bait, but actually it showed that immigration enriches the English education system. And actually those second generation of immigrant coming from immigrant families actually were doing better than British children who were born in Britain. And they raised the bar for all of our English test scores. So actually, those children coming from immigrant families actually supported us to do better in the PISA results. So again, it just shows that actually, having a variety and of cultures in our country is a positive thing, not a negative thing, as it sometimes is portrayed in the press. So no, I just thought they were quite interesting results, and a number of people have done blogs and research about the PISA result and summarise that, and I've put some on the link at the bottom in the notes on the PowerPoint. So when you get the PowerPoint, if you did want to read more about the PISA results, there are some blogs there that are quite interesting. Just another place that is good for getting research, one of our ELEs, Jade Pierce, she's doing a research advent calendar. So every day she's doing a little summary of different pieces of research and evidence. So here's an example on door 12. She looked at a meta-analysis of the strategies from the Strengthening the Student's Toolbox. And again, this largely replicated Dunlosky's findings that the two most effective strategies were retrieval practice and space practice. But what's interesting to note is actually some of the things that weren't as effective sort of so even though they're less effective, and obviously if we've only got a finite amount of time, we want our students to be using the most effective strategies of that retrieval practice, but not to dismiss those other strategies as well, because they do have some impact on the pupils in terms of how it supports them to retain information. But every day she's doing a little summary of that evidence research, so that's one to look at. And you don't have to belong to Twitter to look at that. You can just go on Twitter and look at that even without being a member of Twitter or on there. The other place that I go to and find really useful for evidence updates is Peps McRae. And again, I've put the link here to sign up to his evidence snacks. And every week he just emails a 5-minute email, and it's just got a really good piece of research that can be used in the classroom. And again, he just summarizes that research in a really palatable way. So it's a little bit of a summary of the research and then what teachers can do in their classrooms to impact on what the research is saying. It's free to sign up to. For example, this week it was about high stakes and against performance, and when the children feel it's high stakes against performance, what effect that happens to them. And it was some really nice summary of the research and some really good top tips for teachers on how they can support that within their classrooms to get the highest performance from their pupils. So again, if you're not signed up to that, Peps McRae Evidence Snacks, there's the link on the PowerPoint. But also Peps is a fantastic person to, again, follow on Twitter, because he's daily, again, looking at evidence, looking at research and how it can be applied in the classroom. Okay, so we're going to look at what's new from the EEF then. And we're very excited that we released our primary science guidance report. Even if you're not primary though, I think this is a really useful document to look into, and it can be found on the EEF website. I think it can support secondary science to look at how they're doing it, but also just high quality teaching. And it just has lots of the fundamentals of what high quality teaching should look like, but through the lens of science in this guidance report. So it looks like this. So Improving Primary Science Guidance Report. It's taken from a range of fantastic evidence. They found 15,000 studies around the teaching of science. And then they used the 90 most robust and relevant research that has really impacted on this guidance report and those recommendations for teachers working within primary settings. And they've distilled that down into a palatable guidance report that hopefully is user-friendly, with a number of case studies for how it can be applied, how that research from all those studies can be applied to, again, to have the biggest impact on the teaching of science. So these are the recommendations. So they're to develop pupils' scientific vocabulary, encourage pupils to explain their thinking, whether verbally or in written form, guide pupils to work scientifically, relate new learning to relevant real-world context so they can see it in real life and how that applies to their life, use assessment to support learning and responsive teaching, and strengthen science teaching through effective professional development as part of an implementation process. And as you can see, a lot of those themes for those recommendations would be true in most subjects as well. And again, it gives you some really nice recommendations. For number one, the pupil's scientific vocabulary. It's about identifying that science-specific vocabulary, the children that you want the children to learn within the lessons. And they've put it into different tiers. So tier 1, words that are encountered day to day that are also relevant in science. The polysemous words that have an everyday meaning and a scientific meaning. So really to help them to understand what it means in a science context, as well as what they would know it to mean in an everyday context. And then obviously there's tier 2 and tier 3. And the guidance report very much recommends that you focus on that tier 2 and 3 and those polysemous words, and really think about what is the key vocabulary you're wanting them to learn within your science curriculum. Number 2 is, again, very linked in with the metacognition guidance report in terms of encouraging pupils to make their thinking explicit, verbally or in written form. And there's A, B, and C. So create that collaborative learning environment, capitalise on the power of that dialogue, and cultivate reasoning and justification. And again, there's some really good recommendations and case studies and ideas for how you can actually do that within the classroom. Number 3 is about guiding pupils to work scientifically. So it's about explicitly teaching the knowledge and skills required to work scientifically. And there's a really nice diagram that explains how you can do that. And again, linking into that 7th step of that metacognitive process. But the key thing is that opportunity for that discussion and that reflection, as well as activating their prior knowledge, that explicit strategy instruction, the modelling of that learned strategy, the memorisation of a strategy. So they've really clearly got the understanding of that strategy, some guided practice where it's done together, and then some independent practice time and that structured reflection. But obviously the key thing is that not all 7 of these have to be done in one lesson, but over the course of a unit or a topic. But it's making sure all of those elements are there to get the greatest impact on the pupils' learning and understanding. Number 4, relating it to relevant real-world contexts. I'll just let you read through this one. So again, not dissimilar to maths in terms of how do we get these abstract concepts more tangible? So it's thinking about what virtual models and actual physical concrete materials we can use with children so they actually can see it and experience it to try and support them, and really think how we can plan that teaching so that it really links to their real world context. Number 5 is using assessment to support learning and that responsive teaching. So again, it's recognising, revealing and responding, and planning that teaching that builds on their existing knowledge and experience. So making sure we know at what point they're at and they've got those building blocks in place so they can move forward and on with that. So for example, it's thinking about if we're looking at how we build mountains, how mountains are formed, do they have an understanding of the tectonic plates? So it's have they got the prior knowledge to enable them to build on that and really access the learning in that lesson. And obviously it's about monitoring pupils' learning for that responsive teaching and feedback. So clarifying our learning intentions, eliciting the evidence of learning and reflecting on teaching judgments. But again, in the guidance report, it gives clear case studies and ideas for how you can put these into practice into schools. And as you can see on the toolkit, that at the bottom, it shows that teacher assessment in primary science is low cost, but the evidence strength is really strong. The research suggests it's really strong, and it can have at least a minimum of 2 months impact when done well. When that teacher assessment is used effectively in primary science, it can have that difference on the impact. And then number 6 is about strengthening science teaching through effective professional development as part of an implementation process. And at my school, we use Reach Out CPD, and it's free, Science CPD. And that's on the link on the PowerPoint when you get it. But again, if a teacher is teaching, for example, forces or electricity, there are a number of videos and modules that they can watch to really ensure they've built up their own subject knowledge before they go and teach that subject. So it's a really fantastic way of doing that with staff. But again, it's thinking in your settings, how do you actually ensure that your teachers do have that subject knowledge and are expert teachers of science within your settings, and ensuring that professional development is high quality. And again, our professional development guidance report has those mechanisms in for how we can ensure that professional development opportunities have the biggest impact. But there's some really nice audit tools as well, and some resources to help you plan CPD for science in your schools as part of the guidance report. As part of the science guidance report being come out, all of the research schools have written blogs and articles talking about how these guidance reports recommendations can be put into schools. So again, on the PowerPoint, I've put a number of links to lots and lots of different articles that again talk about how these recommendations can actually look in the classroom, and hopefully they'll support class teachers and leaders to look at how they'll do that. So if you don't teach science, this is one to flag up to your science team. But also, it's like I said, it's a good document to look at just for high quality teaching and some areas for that. Okay. There is also a free science twilight. Simon Cox from Blackpool Research School is doing that on the 22nd of January. And I've put the link there that you can sign up to. And he's going to be looking into looking at the improving science secondary science guidance report, but also looking at how the primary science guidance report aims to help teachers to understand how to use the evidence to identify the most effective way to improve science teaching and outcomes in their school. So again, that's something to flag up and pass on to science colleagues in your schools if they would like to attend that free opportunity. Okay, so in terms of EEF resources, obviously our pupil premium reports need to be on our websites by the 31st of December. So I'm sure that they're well underway within your schools. But again, this is a guidance that came out that has been really, really useful and has been downloaded the most times, I think, on the EEF website, or it's definitely high up there in terms of that guide to pupil premium. So again, this is something to make sure your pupil premium lead knows about, because they're fantastic resources here. It includes a 5-point plan to sustain an effective pupil premium strategy. So it gives a clear plan of how to get your pupil premium strategy right. Then there are resources in terms of the menu of approaches, the evidence brief. It's got discussion prompts for governors and trustees. And there's also a really clear poster about how the tiered model can be used to impact on the disadvantaged pupils' attainment. And again, there's a number of blogs and articles to help you with pupil premium planning. Nathan from Staffordshire wrote a really good one. We last year reviewed a number of authorities, all the pupil premium plans and all the lessons we learned from there. He's distilled that into a really useful guide. There's also Shotton Hall Research School have produced a 5 premium document that again is really useful. And so is Derby in terms of 5 reflections on how to get the most out of your pupil premium guidance report. So all those resources are on there to share with your pupil premium lead back at your school. Just a reminder about the teaching and learning toolkit. So if you are looking at those strategies that you're going to utilise in your pupil premium strategy, then it's worth looking at the toolkit, because that will show you what strategy you're going for, what the evidence strength is in terms of how much research has been done about that strategy, how much it's going to cost you in terms of the school, and what impact it's going to have. And again, it just gives you an idea of those best bets. It always comes out that metacognition and feedback is the highest in terms of +7 months, but it also indicates strategies that actually can have a detrimental effect if implemented well, and they could be like or 0. And again, we only have finite amount of time, so it's thinking about making sure we're using strategies and interventions that have the highest impact. So the teaching and learning toolkit can really support with that pupil premium planning, or when you're thinking to introduce a new strategy. There's also this year the EEF have produced the support for early years settings, and there's an early years toolkit. So just like the other toolkit, the teaching and learning toolkit, there is one that is focused on interventions and strategies in the early years, and it really gives clear guidance on what are the most effective strategies to use in the early years. There's also an early years evidence store, and again here there are lots and lots of videos and exemplification of really high quality practice in the early years. So again, something to pass on to your early years colleagues to support them with their development and support them with their team and professional development opportunities. Also this year, we've linked up with TES and we've produced TES Explains. There is a number of articles on the TES free to access in terms of the research and what it's saying for teaching and what's going to be the most effective strategy. So again, this is something to flag up to your teaching and learning leads and your curriculum leader, in terms of, if you just Google TS explains, there's lots and lots of articles on there about cognitive science, about retrieval practice, lots and lots of things where it clearly explains what they are, again, and how you can do those in your classrooms. So research school opportunities now. So at the moment, we have got an Advent giveaway. We've been very lucky that lots and lots of authors have been very kindly donated books to us. If you follow us on Twitter and you retweet our tweet, we're picking one winner every day where you can win some fantastic educational books and also some guidance reports. So please do follow us, and again, pass that on to colleagues if they want to win some reading for your CPD libraries. It's a fantastic event. Obviously, you're here at the What's New Evidence briefing, but the next session is going to take place on Friday, the 2nd of February. Again, if you think there's any other colleagues who would find these sessions useful, please do pass on the information about these sessions. We've also got a session coming up in January that's face-to-face at our Teaching School Hub in our training centre. And that's about metacognition and how that can be applied in the classroom. And Debbie Tremble, one of our ELEs, is leading that, and the link is on the PowerPoint if you'd like, any of your colleagues would like to book onto that. And we've also got a free twilight on the 22nd of February. Tom Bithell, one of our ELEs, is running a session about effective feedback. And again, that comes up as really strong on that teaching and learning toolkit as having the biggest impact if you can get feedback right. So that's a really fantastic session about what are the principles behind high quality feedback. Then here's just some other opportunities I've pulled together from the Research School Network that, again, please flag up to colleagues you think may find these useful. So that we have had some different maths sessions that are all free. There's one left now that's going to take place in January, and that's Mastery Routines. And again, the link is on the PowerPoint if anybody would like to book onto that session. We've also got Blackpool Research School. They're doing a number of twilights in February and March and May. The next one is on May 5th of February on behaviour. Then they've got one in cognitive science. There's cognitive science they've got on the 20th of March and the 22nd of May. And again, they're free twilights that we can attend, and the link will be on the PowerPoint to book onto those. Then we have unlocking the evidence, literacy, developing pupils' language capabilities for literacy leads across all phases. And that's taking place again free online on Tuesday, the 6th of February. So please pass on to your literacy colleagues. We've got Mastery picture books. This is on the 23rd of February. And again, this is a free twilight. And then a number of sessions here on assessment, on SEND, getting the evidence into the classroom, and again, metacognition. And these are all free twilights, so please pass those on. The links are on the PowerPoint. The English hubs, again, are a fantastic source of research-rich professional development. And Little Sutton English Hub have got a number of events all through the year. But in January, they've got Kirsty Godfrey presenting developing a high-quality English curriculum, the role of governors in supporting phonics implementation and teaching reading comprehension to years 3 and 4. So again, please flag those up to colleagues you may think will find those useful. Kyra Research School do evidence briefings, but they do them as podcasts this year. So you can sign up to those and they email you on those dates with those reports. Their next one is on science, and it's going to be released on the 23rd of January. But again, the link is on there on the PowerPoint for you to sign up to receive these. They've also got some coming up on effective professional development, on SEND, on metacognition, and they are free updates, podcasts that they will email out to you if that's of interest to you. The early years stronger practice hubs are fantastic in terms of supporting early years colleagues. And in the West Midlands, we have the Thrive Together group, and they have got 2 more sessions coming up. On Wednesday webinars. So they've got literacy one on January and another literacy one at the end of January as well. So again, the link is there to sign up to those free webinars. They're also having a spring early years conference on Friday the 8th and Saturday the 9th of March at Edgbaston Cricket Ground. So that's a date to get in your diary. And if you follow them, you will find out much more information about what it's going to entail. At the moment, they're asking colleagues for what they would like in that conference. So if you've got any ideas of what you'd like and what you'd benefit from, then again, please get in touch with the Midland Stronger Practice Hubs. Just again, flagging up some resources that are really useful. The Dixon's open source have a number of videos that are really, really useful, again, to look at how research can be put into the classroom. They tweeted one yesterday and it was about how cognitive science can be put into place in primary school. So it's a free resource, lots and lots of videos there, again, that can support professional development. And also Chiltern Teaching School Hub, they've got a wealth of videos, again, that show that really fantastic practice in lots and lots of different areas, in leadership, in SEND, in school improvement. It's all free to access, and the link again is on here. But again, you can Google Chiltern Teaching School Hub video catalogue, and they've got subject-specific CPD as well. And again, it's all free access on their YouTube channel. So if you're planning any professional development for in the spring or summer term, some of these videos could help you with that. Okay, so all that left for me to say is I'll just show you our little video to say Merry Christmas. Hope you have a wonderful Christmas and a Happy New Year. And from everybody at Staffordshire Research School, we hope you have an amazing Christmas, a well-deserved rest. And thank you so much for joining me. And I hope you found this session useful. And I hope you have so much, everybody, and see you in the new year. Thank you.